Okay, in honor of the physical prowess of Sean Penn, can we just start with gym selfies? And you guys appear to be anti-gym selfies. Is that the situation? Because why not share with the world what we got going on?
What we got going on. I mean, that's a justification for a number of different kinds of selfies, if that is your standard.
Well, that's a good point.
So I don't know if that's really the.
Did the gym stuff start after you pivoted to video, or has this always been
That's right.
an obsession for you?
I mean, Jason's posting more pictures of himself in the engineer's channel than I do. That's
just because I have an obligation contractually to post some saucy videos, so some saucy photos for our subscribers. I'm trying to get the OnlyFans going.
It's like the Riyadh Comedy Festival. They also require some
Exactly.
some social posts.
Man,
the contract
the Chappelle handprint one was tough. That was a tough one.
My feed is full of those. They all seem to be coming from the Saudi minister in charge of culture, so he presumably thinks they're great, and they all look like hostage videos. It's wild.
There was one that was like I saw a post today that Tim Dillon was supposed to go, and he didn't end up going because he made a joke about it. He's like, look, it's like whatever, they've got slaves, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't get paid. And the Saudis were like, that joke wasn't funny, you're not coming. It's like, oh yeah, no. It turns out the absolute monarchy of Saudi Arabia is not free speech maximalist and is not going to support your edgelord humor. So,
and also Tim Dillon has joined the resistance. So welcome, Tim.
Yeah, it's a big tent. It's a big tent. We'll welcome anyone.
Well, there's a debate about how big the tent is.
Should we start with Ezra versus Ta-Nehisi Coates as the topper for this? Because I think it's highly relevant.
It is relevant.
The movie we want to discuss.
The moment when Ta-Nehisi Coates was like, silence is an option, Ezra.
Yeah, he bodied us. I mean, as a debater, I will tell you that Ezra got fucking bodied in this podcast. But I think it is primarily because it took them a while to define the terms as there are separate projects between what is politically expedient and what is like morally correct. And it took a while for them to define what things that a politician would do versus things that not a politician would do in the context of the moment that we're in. But Ezra got pretty bodied in this podcast. Is my review.
I thought it was just a pretty fucking reasonable conversation between two smart people about what is to be done, and they both conclude they don't really know, and they're going to keep doing what they're doing, and that kind of sums up where we're at.
If you want to go with the non-hot take version of who won a debate, then I guess that's fair. But I think the problem I will tell you, if you were scoring this from a debate standpoint, the problem that Ezra ends up in is that Ta-Nehisi Coates ends up with an unimpeachable moral argument in the debate, and it becomes very difficult to come back with yes, if we don't have power we can't do these things. It's absolutely, and yet there are certain lines that we cannot cross, and that is and that is the ultimate truth.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm more inclined to Ezra thinking than Ta-Nehisi thinking, but in general, I thought that Ezra's argument about Roe v. Wade and where we are and how Obama came to power as a normie opposing gay marriage, even though he probably didn't oppose gay marriage, seemed like pretty good arguments that I don't think Ta-Nehisi refutes.
No, I don't think he
we
refutes.
We do have to be practical about it, and we have to be pragmatic and take these reasonable positions. But you don't have to buy into the framing mechanism that the right has, right? We're not trying to win those voters. We're trying to win everybody else, so that there are so many more of them. So I think and this actually ties to the Sarah McBride interview with Ezra as well, of we got to get the normies. That's what this is all about. And some of those people are more moderate than we might like.
Some of those people have ideologies or beliefs that would make Sarah McBride and Ezra, and I think a lot of people listening to this podcast, very upset, but you want their vote. So
yeah, I think
no one's debating that.
I think the place where Coates kind of shines through is that what you would do in the context of electoral politics is one thing, but the ultimate guiding star for what kind of nation we want to be and what we want to do as people has to be something that is above and beyond that.
By the way, that the right has been doing for decades, right? They've been having their own internecine purity contests, but they also just inexorably have won power and got what they wanted all along.
Yeah. That's true.
Right.
That's true. And have become more and more right.
I mean, my biggest take is the commentary in my feeds, primarily on all of them. Honestly, like it's all incredibly negative. Like Ezra's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he keeps asking Ta-Nehisi how we should win political power, and that's not the point. I'm like, well, no, that is the point of his question. And again, Twitter isn't real life, but sometimes it's closer. Quite discouraging to see the left commentariat not get the point of the discussion in my mind.
I think I do. I think I get the point of the discussion, and like I share obviously the political goals. I think the issue is that you have to find a way to talk about those in a way that is consistent with your values. I also think that people in politics or political observers sometimes believe that there's like sort of one simple trick or one bank shot that enables you to kind of like persuade, even though it maybe is like moving the positions. And what we've seen, again, to your argument of what's worked from the right, is that the ideological kind of maneuvering, like there was an entire postmortem on what Republicans needed to do after the Romney loss, and it was moderate on immigration and moderate with minority voters.
And they did the opposite, right?
They did the opposite of that and have been rewarded with eternal power. Because the truth, particularly with national politics and particularly with presidentials, is that the personality and charisma of the candidate very much matters. And that if you have the right candidate and you have the right moment, you have the ability to move the country in a way that maybe seemed impossible based on just polling and the numbers. And I think that's really important.
Right. The right didn't defeat Roe v. Wade because Roe v. Wade is unpopular.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I think it is worth following up on what Coates said, which was like, if Biden hadn't run, like imagine a world where Biden like just says, I'm a caretaker, like, and now we have a primary and we have a big fight, and somebody emerges really strong and young and vital and engaged and ready to go. Donald Trump probably gets his ass fucking handed to him in 2024.
I do think the bigger point, I'm not sure that's actually true given the state of the economy in 2024, to be perfectly honest. But I do think that the point that Coates makes more broadly,
narrow victory, whatever.
I think it's still a loss. I think it's possible. I think 2024 probably wasn't winnable. I do, and that's where I really agree with Coates. The thing I agree mostly with him, the thing that I thought was like the most shining truth of that entire episode was sometimes you just lose.
We lose. Yeah.
Sometimes you lose, and sometimes you lose generationally, and sometimes you lose for a while. That doesn't change what truth is, and that doesn't change what justice is. And it's important to keep
and our part. Yeah.
And I think to transition to our purpose here today, I think that is what is very interesting and going to be very interesting about the way in which this movie, One Battle After Another, kind of permeates the public discourse, particularly when it comes to award season, is that people are going to be trying to read this movie as political satire, as like, this is about the righteousness of leftist revolutionary politics in the context of white nationalism. Whereas I think what this movie is actually about is a father trying to get his daughter back, and it is not actually, it is a political without being a political satire. And it requires a deeper investigation of what the human condition is than just whose side are you on in this political dispute. So I think that's
all right.
That's what I think is interesting about this movie.
Let me start by saying, put a pin in that for 1 second. Your favorite thing for me to say. So I just want to call out and thank Peter for getting us together. This is our second emergency bonus episode, crisis oriented, because you picked us last year after Civil War.
Crisis
We're like, guys,
oriented.
We got to get on and talk about this, and so this definitely is a nice piece on that. But Peter, welcome back to the pod, and thanks for assembling.
I'm glad to chart the decline of our republic with you guys.
With these podcasts.
Yeah.
Each episode becomes
it
more
is
dire.
literally the least I can do.
Yeah.
Before one last piece of business before we get into this movie, have you finished Andor? Are you now set?
Interesting.
And are you clear on it being the greatest piece of?
Yeah. How did it end up in?
civilization?
How did it end up in your appreciation?
Oh, I owe you guys a tremendous debt for Andor filling. It was tremendous. It was tremendous entertaining television, first and foremost.
Yeah.
The politics is a great second bit. It was great to watch with my now 17-year-old kid. We both really fucking enjoyed it, and we enjoyed it as an adventure, as politics. He's the right age to think about fascism and rebellion and what it means and what it doesn't. That was all great. It's not the greatest TV show of all time.
What is the greatest TV show of all time, Peter?
Well, it's still got to be The Wire. Wire season 1 through 4 is the best written, most entertaining, most serious conversation. But whatever, Andor's fucking great. There's no point.
Yeah.
There's no reason to diminish it. I think one of your guests recently was bringing up the idea that you guys Andor has wrecked your brains for television.
I've
Maybe I'm confusing with a different podcast, but
No.
like Alien Earth, great show,
really great,
lots of flaws, but
hard to enjoy, hard to fully enjoy.
I still enjoyed it. It's just that we're not. I don't expect every show to be The Wire. I don't expect every show to be Andor, and that's fine. We can contain multitudes, but it was fucking great. I'm glad that it's two and done.
Yeah.
That we're not going to go anywhere near it. We started to watch Rogue One, and I'm sure we'll finish it, but it's on the same.
That is the real thing. The real thing that Andor has ruined is less television as a whole, although there's a bit of that for me, and it's more Star Wars, where I'm just like, I'm not like fucking Mandalorian and Grogu, man. Like how hype am I going to be for?
But I was already there. I was already Star Wars. I was a kid when Star Wars came out. It meant a lot to me. As an adult, I have a little bit of nostalgia for it, but I don't. It's not important to me in the way that it is for other peers.
Yeah.
So Andor was just a great delight. Like, oh yeah, we can just dispense with all the bullshit of Star Wars that you don't care about, and it, by the way, like you guys were able to like understand what was it BBY4 means? Is that before the battle? And I didn't. I mean, I eventually got to it, but like none of that stuff meant anything to me. I just got to enjoy it as pleasure and politics secondarily.
Just when that guy bangs the hammers, like your whole body resonates. You're ready to go.
I just still shout "One Way Out" all the time.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, are you guys ready to get into this movie?
Let's go.
Do it.
All right, here we go. One battle after another is the dark reflection of who this country is in this fraught moment of political history. Once upon a time, Bob was a rocket man known as Ghetto Pat, responsible for blowing things up as a core member of the infamous paramilitary resistance group, the French 75. But when his wife, the devastatingly gorgeous and fierce leader Perfidia Beverly Hills, disappears after being compromised and impregnated by the sadistic military agent Colonel Stephen J. Lockjaw, Bob is left to raise their daughter Willa alone. 16 years later, Lockjaw uses the unlimited resources of the U.S. military to kidnap Willa, intent on erasing any trace of her existence before it jeopardizes his admittance to the ultra-exclusive white supremacist group, the Christmas Adventurers Club. Can Bob find his daughter before time runs out and create the change that will allow us all to learn to stop fighting each other, or are we doomed to keep waging one battle after another?
Let's go. Are we all on the first viewing of this? Has anyone seen this movie twice? Yep. Yeah. I almost bought tickets today to go see it again. I would start like sort of, I guess, with that preface, which is that I feel this is a movie I have to see a second time to really kind of fully get it all. I have certainly consumed a lot of content about the movie because it's a movie I think rewards attention, but it was while I was watching it I was like, okay, I'm not the guy. It was like I had like the last time that was true for me.
It's like washing over you.
It was like Oppenheimer. I was like, okay, like the structure is so complicated, I'm not gonna fully get how this is all being put together. And I think the complexity with one battle after another is there are so many plot elements, and both in terms of tertiary characters and things that they're doing, that it's very difficult to appreciate like how all of that ties together in one viewing. So with that caveat, though, I am very excited to talk about the movie today.
So I just want to do quick. I mean, I guess all of us have come to this movie right now. What's your history, Peter, with PTA?
I am not as enamored with PTA as some film bros are. And in fact, I've skipped a lot of the middle of the canon. I saw, is it still called Hard Eight? I know it's had multiple names. Whatever his first film.
Sydney
is his canonical title.
Sydney is the film bro version.
So I saw that maybe at a film festival at the University of Minnesota, because it was hard to see.
Film bro now, Peter.
Whoa,
but that's
Jesus.
No, that's how, if you wanted to see anything, basically, you had to go seek it out like that. This was before the internet. And I definitely like Boogie Nights, but it also read to me like, oh, this is someone who's loves Martin Scorsese and is doing Scorsese stuff and other stuff I've checked out on. And I liked Licorice Pizza. I came back to him then and understood that's sort of a trifle. But I'm definitely up for engaging with him.
Okay.
Jason? I sort of put Paul Thomas Anderson above Quentin Tarantino and below Christopher Nolan in terms of the Coens for me. My sort of my S tier of filmmakers is obviously it's Kubrick, Spielberg, the Coens, and Christopher Nolan, and then probably Denis Villeneuve in there as well. And then I'm PTA, really, really love. Almost every movie he's done is a go see it opening weekend. Boogie Nights was a huge fucking hit because it came out when I was in college, and it was a movie I've seen a million times on DVD and listened to the commentary. Phantom Thread is not a movie I've revisited but really appreciated. There Will Be Blood is definitely one where I was this is a masterpiece. This is one of the greatest movies ever made.
I've never rewatched it.
I have also never rewatched it. I've rewatched it on TikTok.
Yeah. I've watched that one a bunch for whatever reason, but I still have not seen Licorice Pizza, for example.
It's
and
fine.
I liked, and we did. Guests can go listen to our Inherent Vice episode where it's this is a fun movie, but it's not a masterpiece. And The Master is also really interesting, but there's some limitations there. So I would say I'm here for Paul Thomas Anderson. And I'm excited. I was excited this movie was coming out. I was shocked at how both good it was and also how just dominant this movie is in the cultural discussion, to the
right
extent
now
that we're doing this pod. Yeah.
So I discovered, I was in Minneapolis, I think, when Boogie Nights came out, going to the University of Minnesota, and then went back and revisited Sydney. To me, the Boogie Nights was the second coming, and then when I moved to California, I moved back, and then Magnolia came out. To me, Magnolia was the greatest of his films and the most powerful in meaning. Then I kind of fell off after There Will Be Blood. The Master I didn't watch, Inherent Vice I didn't watch, Phantom Thread I didn't watch, and I finally went back and watched them and liked them all to different levels. Licorice Pizza felt very much it was the Wes Anderson kind of Darjeeling Express phase of his career, when it's he's doing his thing and it looks really beautiful and it's interesting, but it's not emotionally really coherent for me or as resonant. And so
it's a hangout. Really, it's a hangout movie.
Yeah,
totally. And so it was really fun to be in this and having he is right back and doing something extremely powerful. So I just want to do some quick behind the scenes. So Jason, what's the deal? Why is he? I haven't consumed a ton of the behind the scenes stuff. What's his story with Pynchon? Inherent Vice, he's an auteur, but he's adapting Pynchon's book for Inherent Vice. This, he tried to adapt Vineland and then was really struggling, so he kind of set it aside. He wrote a bunch of stuff and then kind of mixed them together and still gives the credit for it. But what's the deal with Pynchon? And
he loves Pynchon. I mean, he's clearly PTA is a huge Pynchon fan. I think in particular, it's not surprising that he would be a fan of postmodern literature. I think in particular, the fact that postmodernist literature like exists in the pop culture zeitgeist. Like it's in conversation with other forms of culture, and whether that's rock and roll music or movies generally. Like it is in dialogue with the culture in which it finds itself and is elusive to it. And his movies, like obviously have that element, that postmodern element to it. So it's not surprising me he would be a fan of that genre of literature in particular.
And this is also like Hunter S. Thompson and
less Hunter S. Thompson,
Tom Robbins, or
less those, and more David Foster Wallace, Bartholomew, like those, like that, like real, like stories where there's very convoluted plots, lots of characters with lots of weird names, like a lot of interaction with real world culture, an awareness of literature, an awareness that it is, that it's the awareness of fiction, a metafiction, playing with those concepts, all of those things. I think, yeah. So like he's in that, he's interested in those. He's interested in that dialogue in his movie making. He's just is particularly a big Pynchon fan, and yeah, like Inherent Vice is a straight adaptation, and this is like an inspired by, like a repurposing of Vineland, but both in terms of the actual plot and the setting and set of that story.
So this was initially set up to star Regina Hall, Viggo Mortensen, and Joaquin, obviously retying from Inherent Vice. Warner Brothers greenlights it with a $115 million budget, Leo getting his $20 million paycheck. Even though PTA's highest grossing movie, There Will Be Blood, grossed $76 million.
Yeah.
So do you want to, I mean, we can go ahead and talk about it now. The budget's estimated ultimately to be $175 million. And there was a great discussion on the Midnight Boys, who were kind of in their feelings a bit over the notion that Ryan Coogler is given $90 million to do Sinners, creates a huge, huge success, and yet people are still saying, well, it should have made more money. It was $90 million.
Why did he have this deal?
Yeah, well, how did he get that? That's like really bad. And here it felt like for PTA, they're like, here's $175 million. Like, we hope it works, but if it doesn't, that's fine because you're PTA.
Well,
so,
I mean,
Peter, how does that work from a kind of
I'm glad I'm only getting to this now, and that it wasn't in my head before I saw the movie. I wish I knew even less about the movie before I saw it, because it definitely has skewed how I thought about it. If I just went straight cold, I think I would have enjoyed this movie a lot more. Because I think the hype undermined my pleasure for it, and I did enjoy it. Is Ryan Coogler treated differently than Paul Thomas Anderson by Warner Brothers executives? Maybe, I don't know. But his deal is not the same as PTA's deal. He has ownership of that movie. It's a potentially big fucking deal, and to just say that they're equal isn't. My big question about the budget is, I don't know where that 140 million is on the screen. It's not I don't mean it in any way a criticism of the movie. I just don't understand how you put that much money in. I frankly am shocked that Leo got his 20 million for that. It seems like when you work with PTA, you automatically understand this is not going to be a giant movie. You take less to make the movie work. And even when you factor in his budget, his salary, I just can't imagine how. Isn't that what Denis spent on Dune?
Yeah, it's something 165.
It's something.
It just doesn't. It doesn't look like those are made on the same P&L at all.
Yeah, I never understand sort of. Like the P&L movies are always a bit surprising to me of what costs what. I mean, it is worth saying that there's a huge cost associated with how they shot this movie, because they shot it in large format. And they had to do all of these chase sequences with cameras that are incredibly big, incredibly heavy, and incredibly loud.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And so, if you look at sort of the rigs that they built for these VistaVision cameras, it's fucking nuts. And they
that all seems like a PTA problem, not an us problem, or not a Warner Brothers.
No, it is. But it is. I mean, that's where the money goes, though. I mean, that costs a lot of money. And so the other thing I think, just from a business standpoint, that's different about this movie than Sinners is Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio, for any of his off-screen faults is that fucking guy. Like, he can open a movie huge and is been doing that for 4 decades. And he is, I think, tremendous in this. I think it's an amazing performance. It's certainly going to be nominated for Best Actor this year. And I think it's just, he's a guy that it's like, we're in this weird part of movies right now where people are trying to figure out what you need to do to get people to come to the theater. One of which are these large format, special format presentations of movies, which Coogler also did a great job hyping up for Sinners, and, did a really great job explaining why it was important to go to the theater for. And the other reason is because there's like 2 movie stars left. And this movie, this movie has one of them. And like and Leo is out there doing press for this movie, like pushing this movie in a way that he has never done in his career. Like, he's doing fucking TikToks on Chase Infinity's account on TikTok to like get people
because they know this is not a mainstream movie. Like, we can qualify the cultural discussion, and it's Paul Thomas Anderson's biggest opening. It's a small movie that has action components and stuff. And I think, again, they probably have done themselves a disservice by marketing it as an action movie. I get why they would do that. But I think anyone who doesn't know what they're getting and walks in seeing an ad is like, what?
A 3-hour movie, especially when the first hour is like sort of a meditation on. Yeah,
and there's action, but there's a lot of him lying on the couch getting high.
But the cinema score has been an A. I would worry about that, but apparently people
do like it.
I think this is the weekend where every PTA fan went. Yeah. And then we'll see the rest.
We'll see. It'll be interesting to see what the second week fall off is, for sure.
My final thesis on this is that part of this is a shot across the bow for Warner Brothers at Universal to like just trying to send up a flare for Nolan to be like, hey, bro, come on back, man. We'll give you the money.
I don't know if they need Nolan. Like Warner Brothers is like, Warner Brothers is doing amazing. Like, Warner Brothers films,
they've had a great run. But by the way, that this happens with studios and networks, right? They suck shit, and then they have a great run, and no one can really explain why, and anyone who does is likely full of shit. And there's a very high likelihood that Warner Brothers does not exist in a couple years as a standalone entity, right? That the Ellisons will buy Warner Brothers Discovery or some version of it, and they will mush the two of those things together. And that seems like it's overall a net bad to have fewer studios. We don't know how it's going to pan out, but the idea that there's any like the studio wrangling is all sort of beside the point when it's the handful of men who are buying the studios that's what's relevant.
Do you like the idea of Tim Apple riding into the rescue and buying out Warner Brothers?
What would he be? Why is no? I mean, I don't care. Like why do I care?
Apple, to
keep it as an independent studio.
Just keep it away from Ellison. Like keep it from being that much mushed in with that.
Mushed in, I guess. And then, by the way, the reason the Ellisons, David and Larry, want to buy Warner Brothers as one company is because they know that Tim Apple and everybody else does not want to buy a bunch of cable TV networks. They would happily look at Warner Brothers and HBO as a standalone company, which is Zaslav's big plan. So as soon as he splits those, then there's automatically a bidding war for the good co. And the Ellisons are saying, well, we'll just take the entire thing. And that logic is pretty unassailable from a shareholder, from a Warner Brothers Discovery shareholder perspective.
For sure. It's just a pisser. It's a pisser to happen. So budget $175 million worldwide. First weekend $48 million, 22.5 in the U.S. So it's a good start. Also releasing September of 2025. Jason. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle, Downton Abbey, the grand finale, The Conjuring, Last Rites,
Gabby's
The Long
Dollhouse.
Walk. Gabby's.
Gabby's Dollhouse, same weekend, baby.
Did you see it?
No, but I probably will.
Oh, God.
Gabby's Dollhouse, very big with a 4-year-old.
I know, it took me, Sam got out of Gabby like last year, just got out of Gabby, so it was a long run there. Weapons and the Hamilton re-release.
Yeah, we don't. This is like it's just. I don't know what we're doing anymore. It's a confusing time for culture.
We have Weapons is September.
This is this month. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Weapons is great.
Yeah.
I also wondered.
I need to see it.
I really
Yeah.
want to see it. All right, Peter, where do you want to start? Your first point.
We can keep going the meta discussion, which is, like I said, I caught just enough. I saw the trailer, the original trailer, and got a sense of what it was. I got just a whiff of this is the biggest, best movie of the year, and I wish I hadn't seen it. I wish I'd gone into it that much colder, because I don't think that hype helps the movie. But I also loved knowing nothing about it. I assumed, given, again, just the trailer and Pynchon, that this was going to be, I knew that roughly this was about sort of lefty-ish radicals, and then there's a time jump, and then there's a daughter. And I just assumed there was going to be like enormous doses of paranoia and hallucination in this. And that very clearly things you were going to see on camera were not actually happening, and it was going to be part of your job in the audience to figure out what's real and what isn't, and why does it all matter. And I kept thinking that throughout the movie. And even up until like the very last scene, I'm like, did all of that just actually happen? Are we meant to take all of that at face value? And I haven't seen or heard any discussion of that being the case, that we're supposed to question that. But I just assumed, given the themes of this movie and the ideas, that clearly people would be having paranoid delusions, across the spectrum. And it's really surprising to me that it's meant to be. It's told as a straight story.
Yeah, I think they sort of move the paranoia to the audience as opposed to the characters, because when there's this sequence that happens. I think this is a very interesting point. Like, paranoia is, and shadowy forces working against the characters is a key element of this genre. I think one of the things that's interesting that's going on is I definitely had the reaction from the time when Bob Ferguson's compound is stormed to the time in which he falls off the roof. There's kind of like a 40-minute, 30-minute sequence of just relentless chase, like through buildings, up on roof. Like it's
relentless chase, but also like, oh, this looks like a normal nurse, but actually she's part of the rebellion.
She's part of exactly.
And like, well, that can't all be true. Or the Christmas Adventurers Club scene, is that in the same sequence?
Yeah,
where the guy goes into a house and then underground and through this tunnel into a secret other, like, that can't all be real.
And so I think, and because you as the audience are kind of figuring out at this time how much of the real world that I know is this, and it's so evocative of the present moment. I mean, the movie starts off with the storming of a migrant detention center, that like I think for me, I was having the same question, which is like, is this all really happening? Is this like a real thing that's really happening? And you're sort of like, it puts you in the role that the protagonist in these stories is often in, which is like, how much of this is actually real? Is this really happened to me or not? I think that's in some ways like kind of a more interesting locus for that thematic necessity of this literature than it is kind of putting it in the head.
I am glad that it wasn't, it was all a dream, or this was all in Leo's head, or all, he's been in an insane asylum the whole time. Any version of that, we have that movie. It's called Shutter Island, right?
Yeah.
Right. We have a million versions of that movie.
I definitely. It's funny you mentioned just when walking in the sub basement to get to the Christmas Adventurers Club. I was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? Like, this is huge. How can this possibly be this big?
Yeah.
But I thought that was really fun. Or even the idea of like that somebody's staffing the emergency line 24/7 for 16 years and they're still there. It's just.
Well, the Soros money goes far, is what I can say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you. Jason, I want to follow up on what you just said. For me, I was not prepared at all for how now this is. So, my first note was ICE detention camp. I was just like, it was just really striking to see this. And the notion that immigration, like literally we just did Casablanca last week or 2 weeks ago. And so we're thinking about that. And I loved the idea of the contrast of the military and the actual immigrants that are here, and the pains that PTA went through the whole thing to show these are families. These are like just like normal people trying to live their lives. They are trying to just be here and work. And I just kept being struck by like, it's such a clear example of why the fuck are we doing any of this? Why are we persecuting people who are just trying to live and be a part of our society? And I loved how, for me, this came through Sensei. This came through Benicio. And in the midst of how he's running this underground railroad, and even when the shit is hitting the fan and they have to get people out and the cops are going to be here any minute, he's introducing everybody. He's taking time to say Buenas noches. He's you know, just like making the connections and making sure that everyone feels seen and heard and supported. And I thought that to me was very deeply moving, especially in this moment. I really appreciated that for what it was.
You know, this touches on what I guess I'll make as my first point, which is we talk a lot about on this pod, the dichotomy between having, you know, the Kubrick approach of every sequence in the movie is in a file cabinet versus the Marvel Cinematic Universe approach of we'll figure out what the movie was when we call people back for reshoots. This was a movie on one hand where he'd been working on this as early as like 1999, allegedly. He'd been writing versions of this, Paul Thomas
Holy
Anderson.
shit.
He'd been working on it for a very long time. So there's elements of which that are, you know, obviously in no way he would have known the kind of political reality we're in. Even when he started shooting this movie, couldn't have really known the political reality he would be releasing it into, particularly with the discussion on political violence. And then two, but then also apparently a lot of the stuff with the, like, you know, with the migrant workers, with immigrants, and like, you know, particularly the stuff that's in Sensei's apartment, the stuff with the hospital workers who are instrumental in freeing him. Apparently, according to interviews, a lot of that stuff was Benicio del Toro showing up on the movie like 30 days late because he was shooting a previous movie and bringing a lot of those ideas to set. Now, I don't know what, I haven't seen obviously the drafts of the screenplays of what was, you know, what was written, what was not. But like both like Leo and PTA have said that there were significant changes there once Benicio showed up on set, which I think is very interesting. And, you know, to the larger kind of movie making aspect, there was a lot that was being figured out in this movie as they went along, which is remarkable because it is so fucking complicated. Like, if you even just think about like all of the elements of what's being put on screen as they go through Sensei's apartment, it's incredibly complicated. But yeah, apparently this was a figure it out as you go type situation.
Jesus.
No.
How does this strike you as a kind of vision of the future as we look at this? And this, like, it feels like a throwback to the 60s, right? And that's why when Vineland was written, Pynchon was looking back to the 60s and the Weathermen and Black Panther and, you know, kind of like domestic violence happening. You know, this does feel like this is just looming.
No, I mean, to me, it feels like this is what I think more on the right people imagine leftist agitator groups are doing because there is a template for it. I was just Googling. I went to Wisconsin, and a big part of the Wisconsin legacy is they blew up what they thought was a ROTC building and killed a researcher there. This is like 1970, 71. And it's sort of it's the end of that, near the end of that wave of armed rebellion on the left, and sort of, you know, a shameful incident and had to sort of grapple with that forever. But I don't think there is any analog to that happening today on the left. It's what the right imagines they're doing. I mean, I don't know if it's sad, but I mean, the violence we have now is the violence we have, right? Which is individuals self-radicalizing on the internet. And in a lot of ways, it's scarier no matter what your ideology is. I don't know why I said that way. Because you can't stop it, right? It's just out there in the ether. There's no thing to choke off.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to the point I made up top, which is that it's a mistake to read this movie as political satire about the current moment and too close of a read. And that it's like, oh, okay, like, you know, we have political violence in our culture. Like, what are we supposed to take away about like right-wing political violence versus left-wing political violence and like the actors behind that? The type of, to double click on Peter's point, the specific type of revolutionary politics that are being shown from the left in this movie are ones that just simply don't exist. They're, black liberation movements and Weather Underground and things like that. And those movements just don't actually exist. It's instead, I think, again, the fundamental project of the movie is how do you have, how are you a good father to a daughter in a time when, you've lost, the mom's no longer around, in a time when there is tremendous strife in the body politic. And it's less about sort of taking a lesson of, and here's the revolution that you should be fighting, or here's the right political response to that. And more what does it mean to be human in this moment? Which is why I think the movie is so why I think the movie is going to be a masterpiece that we look back on, because it touches on these questions of what does it mean to be human, and what does it mean to try to seek family, and what does it mean to try to seek truth in a time of incredible dislocation. The nature of the dislocation bears a resemblance to some of the elements of what we have right now, but that's not the lens upon which to measure the current moment.
The Christmas Adventurers Club is, we're led to believe, a weird offshoot that does or doesn't have government approval, but it's done in secret, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we don't do that in secret. We have Donald Trump, and Stephen Miller.
We have white nationalist rallies, explicitly. No one needs to meet in an underground bunker. They don't say "Hail Saint Nick," but we have Christian nationalist rallies already without that. Yeah. And so I think, it is not a straight line to either. The other thing is that Lockjaw as this avatar of evil in some regards, he's kind of like a Sugar character from No Country. He's sort of this relentless Maleficent, but he's more complicated than Sugar. He is a more human character than just a Coen Brothers avatar of evil character, whether it's Sugar or the biker from Raising Arizona.
But the Christmas Adventurers Club is straight Coen Brothers. Is straight cartoony Nazi Coens.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. But the degree, that's where it breaks with it being Strangelove, for example, is that Strangelove, like Ripper and Strangelove himself, those are not characters that have human dimensions, interior lives, complicated motivations, where they want to be part of a white nationalist movement, are awarded the Nathan Bedford Forrest Medal of Honor at one scene. That was a little throwaway. It was Bedford. He gets the Bedford Forrest Medal of Honor. Nathan Bedford Forrest is the Confederate general who also founded the KKK.
Did not pick that up. Thank you.
Yeah.
No.
And yet also has a thing for black women, is seduced by a black woman and has a mixed race daughter, and so it's
which a lot of Klan guys most
of course 100%.
Well.
I'm just saying it's you don't get that in a Strangelove or something that is more of a straight political satire, because the ultimate level that this movie is most concerned with is the human lives of the characters in it. And yes, there are.
But it does. So the Nazis are Nazis, right?
Yes.
And Sean Penn is a Nazi that's a little more textured or interesting, or you're not sure how it's going to. You don't know how it's going to play out with him and his daughter until the end, right? And then it's shocking when it does. But you still sort of might go in a couple different places. The lefty folks are the ones that all have shading in character, and one way to explain that is, well, that's the characters Paul Thomas Anderson's interested in. He's ultimately talking about a man and his daughter, and that makes sense. I mean, it does suggest, though, that he's more sympathetic, and again, I guess he's sympathetic to the anti-Nazi cause. No shit, but he's stacked it as, these are the interesting characters, these are the cardboard cutouts.
I agree that there is a sympathetic element. I do think it's worth pointing out, though, that there is a critique of the left in this as well.
Of course. But that just assumes that's something worth critiquing. Whereas on the right, these are just Nazis. They're literal Nazis. And we don't need to discuss why they feel that way or what their methods are. They're just bad.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I do like the fact that I'm once again, just like Civil War, taking the more straight ahead, literal analysis of this, and Jason, I do appreciate, because of how shitty things are right now, that notion of trying to anchor it more in the human element and just the feelings, and the reminder that this is just part of where we are right now as we're going through it. and that this is
And
more
it brings
power.
us back. It brings me back to the Ta-Nehisi Coates of it
Exactly.
all, which is
Exactly.
like, there's like, sometimes you lose, and like the question
Yes.
is like, what does it mean to be human, and what does it mean to respect the humanity in others? Like one point on this that I would, to kind of bring it to, back to the movie is, so Stavros Halkis had this. Brought back his letterbox to review this movie, and his one line letterbox review is Star Wars, but the Jedis are hot black girls, which I think is a really fucking genius take on this movie. It's also worth noting that Leonardo DiCaprio in movies has said this movie is like Star Wars. Like there's a Yoda in this movie that we're trying to rescue the princess. There's a weird paternity thing going on. Like I think like the Star Wars of it is actually really relevant. And like there is like sort of a there is something like more universal.
Does that make
like, the
Perfidia
type of-
Darth Vader?
I think it makes Perfidia like sort of. I think Perfidia is kind of. I think Lockjaw is Darth Vader, but
She's
Shmi.
Padme.
But yeah, she's like Shmi or Padme, like the absent mother, who isn't there. In terms of one other point, just while we're in the movie illusions point, Perfidia Beverly Hills, amazing name. Perfidia means betrayal, which makes sense for a character who betrays, is a rat in this movie. It's also the name of the song that plays in, it's originally a Spanish language song that plays in Spanish at one point in the movie.
Incredible.
That song also plays in Casablanca. And also in Casablanca is the French 75s that they order from that they order from Rick's.
Yes.
The allusions to Casablanca as like, as the allusions to Battle of Algiers, these sort of like, classic revolutionary, like how do you like, survive in the underground tales, I think are another kind of like intertextual thing. And this is where Paul Thomas Anderson really is, I think, like sort of the genius version of Quentin Tarantino, like the thinking man's Quentin Tarantino, because there's also a bunch in this that's like a Terminator 2 reference with like the way that Lockjaw walks and like the way that he gets out of the fire. So there's all of these levels of just intertextual play that he's engaging in the context of this broader philosophical project, but it's those anchors to like, remember, this is a movie and this is the project of what movies do. It's about trying to get the dad back to his daughter. That is the kind of North Star of how you kind of make sense of some of the other stuff, in my view.
I love it. Peter, what's your next thought?
Oh, we've jammed a lot of them in, but I'll stay on the meta component. So the idea that this being a big movie or swamping the culture, like I haven't Google trended it or done any kind of analysis, but like I think swamping the culture, right? We're talking about people who listen to or make Ringer podcasts or in Paul Thomas Letterboxd fans, right? Yeah. So not nothing, but immediate, but not huge. I am shocked, and especially after seeing it. Someone had given me a slight heads up about sort of how timely this is and referencing Charlie Kirk before I went in. I'm shocked this is not fodder in conservative media.
Fox News,
before I got on, I Googled, there's a lone foxnews.com article written by a contributor doing all the things you would expect, like this glorifies leftist radicalism, etc. And I cannot figure out why they haven't gone at. I mean, it's got to be as simple as it's just not on Steve Miller or Donald Trump's radar. But it's Leonardo DiCaprio, who is one of the best known actors in the world and is also a well-known liberal actor. You'd think that would ping their radar, and you'd certainly think that, they shoot cops and it's black women with guns and any of that. I mean, it seems like it's intentionally designed to be provocative, and I can't believe they're not taking the bait. I mean, this is the same presidency where the president published a totally fake AI video about a QAnon conspiracy on Saturday night.
Medbeds.
Yeah, so they're
busy with other things, Peter. They're busy building the medbeds.
They're building the medbeds, and so not all of them are playing 3D chess.
I never clicked on that. Was it like a Star Trek thing?
It's a total QAnon. We actually spent some time in the Discord tracing back the history of medbeds in science fiction.
They seem great.
Back to Tanks might be one of the earliest versions of it.
But yeah, so anyway, they're not getting this is I think I don't think Warner Brothers would like to have the president targeting them. I'm sure they would not. I'm sure David Zaslav would not. On the other hand, you'd kind of think they want some of the frisson here.
Here's what's going to happen, Peter. Here's a bold prediction. This movie is going to fucking get nominated for every fucking thing in the world. Paul Thomas Anderson is 0 for Life at the Oscars. This very well could be the one.
He didn't get a writing? He's not gotten a writing?
0 for Life.
Wow.
This very well, I think the number's 11 times he's been nominated for various awards. I think that once award season starts in earnest and it's like, oh, liberal Hollywood and leftists are rewarding this movie of political violence, that is when the cannons will be trained on this one.
The only other thing I could think is now, and again, it's got to be wrong, is that the Ellisons are like, lay off this because we want to buy Warner Brothers, but they don't. That doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Doesn't work that way.
No, I think they're not. I just think they're not. I think they're not.
They're just busy sending troops to Portland and Chicago.
Yeah. One interesting thing, while we're talking about the meta of it all, one interesting thing I forget where I heard this. It was another podcast because I've listened to like 17 about it. But it is interesting. I think it might have been The Big Picture. It might have been a Sean Fennessy point where they did not market this movie to black audiences, even though that this is a black liberation movie that is very much about like the life of black women who are in struggle in the society in which they live. This movie also, like, there's a lot been talked about in terms of Paul Thomas Anderson. His partner is Maya Rudolph. He has mixed race children, and Maya Rudolph. There's this interview where she gave where Maya Rudolph lost her mother young, and talks about how her dad didn't know how to do her hair when she was growing up, and like that this becomes a thing that Leonardo DiCaprio just says explicitly in the movie. My favorite version of this, there was someone on Twitter who pulled up a tweet that she had written in 2018 where it was like, after Phantom Thread kind of came out and romped and was just like Paul Thomas Anderson, why haven't you ever made a movie with black people, given that you're married to a black woman and have 3 black children? And then she pulled that one up. It was like, see, he listened to me. And so like there's like an element where like this is like a deeply personal movie.
I definitely thought about Maya Rudolph while I was watching the movie, and apparently he's cast one of his daughters as one of the nuns.
She's the one of the nuns, and she had a bit role. The same daughter had a bit role in Licorice Pizza as well. I didn't know in the
those Haim girls are there for sure.
The
right?
Haim
like,
girls, Haim.
Chaim.
The Maya Rudolph also apparently was the inspiration for Phantom Thread, because Paul Thomas Anderson legitimately thought that maybe she was poisoning him because like he worked so much, and like maybe she was like that was like another bit of real life intruding into art. So like I think it's interesting like the way in which they marketed this movie. Like there is a degree to which like there's an audience that, and now I think they're doing a lot of that on social by bringing out like all 3 of the black the black women leads, like talking about this movie and doing a lot of marketing for this movie, and they're like all of them are going to get nominated. So it's like it's going to be like as this movie kind of moves along in its marketing cycle, it'll be interesting to see sort of how they talk about it. But yes, that goes back to it's Star Wars but for hot black girls, which I like.
I love that.
Yeah.
You brought up Perfidia, so I just want to get into the music because it is such an important part, and it's something that PTA, like I've listened to the Boogie Nights soundtrack approximately 1 million times, and the Magnolia soundtrack, all the Amy Mann stuff and the Supertramp stuff that's on there. He knows how to work it in there. So starting with Perfidia, we have Dirty Work by Steely Dan.
Sure.
While she's doing the Kung Fu segment is so great. Soldier Boy by the Shirelles.
Yeah.
The Ready or Not by the Jackson 5.
That's strong.
I've never heard that song before. I've only heard the Lauryn Hill version.
Yeah.
And so that was incredible. Then you've got American Girl for the credits.
I think the credit needle drop is a big part of why this movie has such a strong like kind of audience response, is because you leave the movie feeling triumphant, like you've won something, which I think is difficult to do in the context of this movie.
But for those people who stick past American Girl, you have Gil Scott Heron's
The
Revolution will not be televised,
which is alluded to in the movie repeatedly.
And which
I didn't
there's
realize
my local non-Alamo is an Alamo-like theater, and they have the same sort of like, we're going to show you reels of stuff in advance, and a lot of it was Gil Scott Heron. I definitely recommend that anyone's listening to this go check out the Spotify playlist, because there's a bunch of stuff that I either didn't pick up on or couldn't identify, and Spotify is super helpful. But yeah, all the boomer music I love for sure. I mean, American Girl is so good, it's almost too good to end on, because it's so upbeat and such a great song, and it kind of blows away your taste buds, right? Like, it's just like all pleasure. But great.
But she's the one running out the door to go help save America. Like, I love it. I love that message for Will at the end.
This is like a good time. This note on like the soundtrack is a good time to bring up another one of my favorite tweets about this movie. It comes from Kate Wagner, who said, in my opinion, one thing that makes One Battle After Another successful film is its reconciliation of postmodern irony with sincerity towards the world rather than disdain from it. And I think this is a really fucking good one-line description of the triumph of this movie, because postmodern irony is intrinsically part of the project here. Like, that we've already talked about sort of the roots of the literature that this movie comes from. It's going to be in dialogue with other media. Inherently in being in dialogue with media, you run the risk of just sort of like taking an artifact like American Girl and like inverting it and looking at it as just like, oh, isn't it funny that the song turns you on or whatever, as opposed to using it as a song that legitimately makes your heart race at the end of a movie. This is like one of the razor's edge tricks that this movie does, while it is like both deathly serious and yet has these laugh out loud moments within it, and it has like, it's in dialogue with the culture in which we find ourselves, but it doesn't give in to the innate kind of cynicism, nothing really matters, that is so endemic about this moment, and really
it treats all the characters, even the Nazi cutouts, seriously.
Yes,
that they mean what they say, they believe what they believe. They may be buffoons, they may be inept across the board, they may be deeply flawed, but they are all, and to go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, right? You are supposed to take them at face value.
Yeah, totally. The last thing I want to say on the music is just Johnny Greenwood. The lead guitarist from Radiohead. This is their 6th team up since There Will Be Blood. It was deeply upsetting for whole portions of the movie. Like, it's so like the percussion and the piano stuff, when it does the big like whoa with the violins and stuff. They do it twice. It's just like, I don't know, really, really amazing, and kind of like blew me back in the chair.
Has he done non-Johnny Greenwood stuff since There Will Be Blood, or does he do every one now?
Let's see. Johnny did There Will Be Blood, The Master, Inherent Vice. He also did You Were Never Really Here, which I haven't seen.
Did he do Phantom Thread?
He did Phantom Thread, Power of the Dog, Licorice Pizza.
Yeah, so
it just announces, and again, I already said I've missed a bunch of them, but that just announces you are watching a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. When you hear that Johnny Greenwood score, like, this is part of the thing.
Let's see.
Interestingly, like, the cinematographer basically has no credits. Like, he took someone who's like shot like one movie or something like that. Like,
this is Michael Bauman. He'd done like almost nothing. Does Licorice Pizza, this, and then he's also shooting Tony, which is apparently an Anthony Bourdain movie.
There's a degree to which this is just like a tremendous flex from PTA, because PTA, who, like, particularly for the last few movies, is like, here's some scenes of people talking, like, in, beautifully lit, beautifully composed, but here's some scenes of people talking. And then Paul Thomas Anderson is like, oh, we doing fucking action? Okay, like, here's 35 minutes of just run and gun. And then what is inarguably one of the great car chases that has been filmed ever. Like, I mean, like, it is just from a cinematic standpoint, you're just like watching it at the end, and you're just like, okay, I'm seeing seeing something I haven't seen before. Like this is a wild bit of movie making at the end, and to do that with a cinema, like I was like, who did he get for this? It's like who's like his DP for like is this Deakins? It's like who did he get for this? And it's like Joe from the camera department or whatever. I mean, no offense to Michael Baumbach or whatever, but like
Bauman.
Yeah, like shout out to that guy. But like, I mean,
we're assuming PTA said, "I got this. You can have credit for it. That's great.
Yeah.
You'll get paid."
So he was a gaffer. Yeah. He was a gaffer who came up going back to the Doom generation, and then he ended up doing a bunch of camera stuff on Iron Man and Iron Man 2, Nightcrawler.
Yeah,
worked on Inherent Vice. So he sort of really made his way up. But
yeah, which they all do. It's just like now it's like that. The cinematographer for this movie is going to be in conversation with like the cinematographers of the best movie of the years. Yeah, so it's like
Dune and Dune and French Connection, not Dune, Duel and French Connection and all the great artists. Yeah, which is crazy.
That whole highway, the roller coaster aspects of the highway,
fucking nuts.
It was crazy.
There's crazy distortion. Where in IMAX, when you see it full frame, like your part of the shot is through the window glass, like through the windscreen. So there's like the distortion of like you were looking out like through the bottom of like the glass of the windshield, but you've still got like the full frame.
Did you see it at the Metreon?
I saw it at Daly City, so I didn't even see it in real IMAX. I just saw it in IMAX form. I saw it in fake IMAX because real IMAX was sold out. One of the things that PTA has said about VistaVision that's interesting is that it allows you to do these incredibly long cinematic, Vista scenes, but it also allows you to get tremendously close. And a lot of like the really interesting filmmaking in this is like, Regina Hall's face in low light, with an incredibly short lens. All of that's really interesting too. So anyway,
the chase scene is one of the reasons I really want to go back and re-see it, because the only real memory I have of it, I know the general contours, is the shocking end, right?
Yeah.
Where she ditches the car. And that is just such, I mean, you could have a pretty shitty movie, and if you have that scene, that's worth watching. And so I definitely want to go, and I definitely had a bit of a hard time tracking all three cars at one point, and I want to figure out if that's my problem or one of the greatest living director's problems, but I didn't quite follow it the way I would like to, but I think I will the second time around.
Yeah.
Also, just the action in general was really amazing. I loved the shots of when they were running across the roof and the skater
doing
boys
their ollie
are
jumps.
Yeah, and it's like it's silhouette shots, Deacon-esque. Like that was so gorgeous. Or even just the moment, it's not flashy. The moment when the bounty hunter decides he's going to save her is so awesome. And, the fact that it happens unfolding off screen and her kind of getting the cuffs off, just really.
That was very Coensy.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you guys want to just quickly talk any other cast related things we need to hit?
The only other casting things I was going to bring up is how good like the secondary, like the supporting actors in this.
James Raderman as Danvers, the guy doing the interviews.
Talk about where they found this fucking guy. Peter, you're the one who went and researched.
Yeah, he is a former military officer, Homeland Security, decades of experience. If you Google hard and long enough, you will find him like getting a 2024 job, like at a local Kansas City school district or something.
Right. That's right.
That's just what this guy does. And apparently he was on a Showtime reality show about bad behavior, but he's got to have some other backstory, but he is not a working actor. He's a guy who scares people in interrogations for a living.
Where did they find
good
this
for
guy?
them to find
How
him.
did they find that? Who could say? The Indian who plays like the tracker guy was in Last of the Mohicans, I think was like one of his like most recent credits. The Jim Downey as one of the Christmas adventurers, like Jim Downey, who's like one of the most famous SNL writers of all time. The only reason people know his face now is because he's the Jeff Epstein, the financier meme. And yet somehow somehow has like this like fucking amazing part in this movie. I don't know how you think to cast Jim Downey in this. And then like, Benicio, obviously not an unknown in any case, but Benicio is just unreal how good he is. And like, you know, people have like really memeified the moment where he gets pulled over, his last
few small beers.
Of course.
Few small beers, and it does just jump off the screen. You're just like, I'm seeing a fucking guy on screen. Like, this is cinema, baby. Like,
which is kind of, I mean, I haven't seen everything he's done.
Yeah,
just everything he's done, you're like, he's great.
He's
just
good.
Watching him is great.
Yeah, it's great.
He's in a very mediocre but ambitious Netflix movie where he's doing a beaten down cop. It's came out a couple years ago. I can't remember the name of it. Just look up his name. 100% worth watching because he's in it.
I never did watch the second Sicario, but obviously
Day of the Soldado,
goated. Yeah.
Another one that's in here. One of the revolutionaries in the French 75 is Jungle Pussy, and that's like she's a rapper. It's her real name. I was like, Jungle Pussy. I was like, I know her. Where do I know her from? And here's where I know her from. In 2016, in New York City, Rhizome does this event called 7 on 7, where they get a pairing of two people, 7 pairings of 2 people, and they have like 72 hours to prepare to do art together at a live event in Brooklyn, as you would expect. And one of the pairings was Jungle Pussy and New York. I don't know if she's still there, but at the time, New York Times cultural critic Jenna Wortham, and they did a thing together that was great. The reason I went to it at all, though, was my friend Paul Ford did a completely written out performed piece with the performance artist and director and actor Miranda July. And it was tremendous. So anyway, shout out to Paul Ford, shout out to Miranda July, shout out Jungle Pussy. Shut up, Rhizome.
Nice. Casting's great. This is the guy who brought us. He's not responsible for Philip Seymour Hoffman, but when you cast Philip Seymour Hoffman in your first indie low budget movie, like you're onto something. You know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh,
John C. Reilly. It's funny. Used to be like a PTA guy.
Yep.
Like a big PTA guy.
Same movie. Yep.
And then I saw a thing like with John C. Reilly. I don't know if it was related to this movie or someone's like, "Oh, you're not in this one." And he's like, "No." He's like, at some point I said to Paul Thomas Anderson, it's like, you don't have to just keep putting me in your movies because we're friends. Like, you should only really include me if like you really want me. And he never included me again. So never say that. Don't ever do that to yourself.
Don't say that.
Paul Thomas Anderson apparently is a big weirdo when it comes to casting. Like he like the story of him casting everyone who talked about how'd you end up doing this. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio's like, yeah, I went out to dinner with him in like 2018 and like we had a conversation. It seemed like maybe we were talking about something, but then he just went away. And then 2 years later, we talked about it again. And then we had another dinner. And like Regina Hall lives next door to Paul Thomas Anderson. And like he came over to her house to like look at her garden. And she realized like in the middle of the conversation that she was going from showing her garden to her neighbor Paul to having a like work meeting with the director Paul Thomas Anderson. She was like, oh, okay. Like, it was like a whole other thing. So he's just apparently a big weirdo when it comes to casting, but gets these fucking amazing, just is amazing at it. Just amazing.
Incredible. Peter, anything we've missed or anything else you want to make sure we hit?
Just back to the end.
Yeah.
The end suggests that a couple things that even though I just said we're supposed to take it all at face value, it suggests that Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who was explaining how to build and turn on and hide bombs, and is a mechanics expert, does not know how to take a selfie on an iPhone, and that more importantly that his daughter is now joining the
phone, Peter. He's never had a cell phone.
I know, but they're intuitive. But more important, that his daughter is now joined the resistance and suggests that this is a good thing and we're supposed to feel good about it. Again, back to that needle drop. And it's partly my personality that whenever I see something on screen, I'm like, is that really what they mean? But I also like, is that really what they mean? I mean, I love that they're connected. I love that she now has freedom, but with, some kind of restraint. It's very good parenting. But I don't know that I'd want my daughter to go chase after the new protests in Oakland or wherever she's going, Sacramento. But two, like, is like it suggests that this is a good thing. Period.
Yeah.
She's doing the right thing, and I guess
go
we're
back
supposed
to
to take that.
I go back to the. I think the Ta-Nehisi Coates in Ezra interview kind of fixes this all for me, because he's like, you're engaged with the struggle that you know will outlive you, and you make progress where you can for as long as you can, and you know that your progeny will have to carry it forward. He's like, ancestors of my, ancestors in my family struggled their entire life and never saw the elimination of chattel slavery. And they died in darkness, and they died not knowing any victory. But you have faith in the longer term generational
because
thing.
and I guess this is, and I haven't read the pension. I guess this is consistent with the book, right? The radicals from 20 years before are living in the present tense and the knowledge that they have lost.
Right.
That everything they wanted to do did not work.
Right.
And that many of them, the ones who aren't dead or in jail, have just quit or bailed out.
Right.
Like the nuns who are now just professional weed growers.
Yeah.
So again, like, it's like, if we were supposed to sit with that would be an interesting movie. And instead the movie that ends with, now we're picking the fight back up again and the struggle continues, which is a different idea.
I think the different idea is like, yes, that the struggle will continue. I think and to your point earlier, it's not as though this movie does not have an opinion about which side of the struggle is the virtuous one. So it is not fatalistic in regard to that. I think the place in which you end up in the weeds and it becomes self-defeating is that this is not a movie that is actually asking questions about what are the right tactics of the struggle, and what are the right political or revolutionary tactics of the struggle. Like, that is defined by the reality of this movie, which actually, as we talked about, doesn't resemble the reality of our time. And it is like, that is the lever on which this movie will be attacked from the right, because like it is going to conflate that point either willingly or unwittingly. But like the broader point, which is like, yes, because he has because they have been reunited and they have a deeper understanding, and she has a true understanding of who she is, because it's actually her mother's voice who kind of concludes her story. Like, she is able to engage in the world.
That was beautiful.
Virtuously,
that scene was amazing.
in a way that she wasn't able to before. Yep. And she's and I think that is the takeaway of the sort of the revolutionary struggle of the movie.
Look at you being good at
lightsaber
podcasts
and running out the door. Yeah, making it happen. Peter, who would Tilda Swinton play?
It's a tough one.
She's got to be one of the Christmas adventurers.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the only choice.
She'd be a good Tony Goldwyn.
Yeah, Tony Goldwyn.
And Tony Goldwyn is so good at being that kind of like hyper competent white guy who's
Was he the one leading the interview?
He's the one from Scandal, which is another bit of like narrative frisson, because like he has like a he's dating a black woman in that, and as like in the role that he is most famous for. He's also the bad guy in Ghost, which is amazing because he doesn't seem like he should be that old. I like that. I like her for like the old guy, like the Admiral of the Seventh Fleet in the Christmas Adventure scene, who's like that character actor. I forget his name, but like he was like he was like a senator. He was a senator or governor in a West Wing arc for a while. He's like been in a ton of shit back in the day. I like him for that.
Is he the one who's comatose until the end of the interview?
Yes.
He goes, well, make it clean.
Yeah, make it clean. You can eat off of it. Yeah, that whole thing.
I was going to say the sensei, just to see her kind of like...
Can't get rid of Benicio.
It's true.
Ocean Waves, Bob.
It also dramatically changes the movie if it's a white lady running the Underground Railroad.
Fair enough.
It's just different. It's just different. That's what I would say.
Ocean
I
Waves,
hope he gets... of all the awards, I'd like Paul Thomas Anderson to get an Oscar out of this, either directing or Best Picture.
Benicio,
and I'd like Benicio to get an Oscar out of this. I agree. It is a performance that fucking levitates off the screen. It's so good. So I'd love to see that.
100%.
But also shout out to Chase Infinity, like this fucking kid who's done like but shout out to her for Greg Utanis is presumed innocent. Like, like,
Yes.
that's great. This is essentially her first movie, and she has got to like contend with Leo and
Sean
contend
Penn?
with Sean Penn, who also is remarkable. Is like one of the best performances of his career too.
The Benicio movie is Reptile, by the way. So I can
right.
finish.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I was saying to you guys, I was sure, and I Googled immediately after the movie, like, well, she's got to be, Chase Infinity has to be someone's daughter.
Yeah,
because
right.
we're trained now that that's just what we have in our culture. And according to Wikipedia, she's just a woman who decided to make a go of it in the arts, and it's working.
Wow. You love to see it. Love to see it. Peter, what do you have to plug, my friend?
Making content, watching the Fate of the Republic. That's what I'm doing.
Channels with Peter Kafka. Available.
Sure. You can listen to that. I think I'm going to be in the show called Escape Hatch in a couple weeks. I wanted to talk about a sexual romp, but you guys are no. You guys are afraid of sex. I understand.
Oh, that's
so
right.
we're gonna do something
Jason.
else.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if that's.
That
I don't know
was
if we're
Jason's
announcing
call,
that yet or not, but that's up to
No,
you guys.
no.
I'm just your faithful servant.
Great. Well, we cannot wait to see you again in the future. Hopefully, we won't need too many other bonus episodes like this. Like, it's great to do it, but it makes me nervous.
It's always bad news when we have a bonus episode.
Stuff is going. Jason, what do you have to plug, my friend?
I mean, shout out to all the other folks in the content minds making pods out of this movie. Like, there's really people like The Big Picture had Leo and Paul Thomas Anderson. I haven't actually even finished that interview yet, but like, I love the fact that they're out there talking about the movie. Like, that's really exciting, and they're talking about like why they're they're really talking about like sort of the project of the movie, which I think is interesting. And they the Big Picture folks loved it and really kind of slathered it up in a way that I thought was enjoyable. And there's a great New Yorker review of the movie that I found was really instructive and helpful. And talked about some of the Strangelove parallels that we talked about on this pod. The Manohla Dargis review is great in the New York Times. Like, there's been a lot of really interesting criticisms. Like, Peter's right. Like, culturally, this, like, it feels like a bombshell because it's like everyone we listen to and read like is really into it, and the size of that audience cannot, it turns out, win a national election. However, like, it is exciting when it feels like there's a monocultural moment that everyone is really into, and it's for something that is this good. That invites this much discussion and is worthy of having this much discussion. So
I feel like this one is definitely Chotner's jam, don't you think?
Shout out to Chotner. I mean, I know Cass Sunstein because of his time in the Obama administration, and Cass Sunstein is like a legitimate savant when it comes to how the government functions, and is absolutely brilliant. However, my man got housed by making the classic blunder of not denouncing Henry Kissinger's war crimes, and instead saying that he helped him. He was nice to him.
Was this a Chotner?
Chotner
interview last week. Yes,
Chotner Sunstein.
Who that feels like the old thing about 60 Minutes. Like, if they show up at your front door, like, that's not because you're doing a great job.
Jason is telling me not. I'm trying to get. I want him on the pod.
Yeah, Matt's reaction to this was, "Let's try to get Isaac Chotner." I was like, "Bro, do you want the podcast to end?"
No, I think that's fine. I just think if he calls you up and says, "I'd like to sit for an interview," like, it's like, or like the old Daily Show where they part of the joke would be they're making fun of the person who doesn't know they're being made fun of. Like, who accepts that interview?
Yeah, it's because they think like they are smart enough to, like, they're smart enough to deal with the fact that they have easily exploitable views on, and it's really always just easily exploitable views on either A, Henry Kissinger, or B, the war in Gaza. Like, it is literally those two things. If you do not have easily exploitable views on A, Henry Kissinger, or B, the war in Gaza, you might actually be okay. Like, I will say, like, I sort of like just want to be destroyed by Isaac Chotner. Like, I just like to find out like sort of the hypocrisy that my life is built on. If he calls, I'm answering.
Maybe for Christmas we arrange a little cameo for you.
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
Thanks, all.
This was great, Peter. Thanks for doing this on short
good.
notice and
Appreciate
working
it.
around Matt's gym schedule.
And now I got to go raise one of my kids.